Welcome to today's edition of Your Questions Answered with Father Gruner. We take your questions and answer them. Please contact us with your questions and comments at the Fatima Center. No, I said that wrong. Questions@thefatimacenter.com. You can see it on the screen there. Questions@thefatimacenter.com. So today we have something that has to do with something that's considered controversial that shouldn't be, and that is about divorced and remarried people, Catholics I should say. If a Catholic is divorced and remarried outside the church, as it were, then they can't receive the Blessed Sacrament. And there are some, I can even think of a very liberal cardinal, who refers to this as discrimination, and that the sacrament of the Eucharist should be open to people who are Catholics who are divorced and remarried.
Well, I think, first of all, before we can even answer that question, which we will try to get to very quickly, but why is a person divorced? So divorce means to cut asunder a bond of marriage that was there, whereas annulment means to declare that the bond of marriage was never there, even though they went through a marriage ceremony. So divorce is quite different from annulment. Now, just not to say that something can't be abused, such as annulment, but just in itself, a divorce is saying you were married at one time, but now you're not married because I declare it so. I being the judge, I being the prime minister, I being who passed the law, or whoever. But God says to us that what God has joined together, let no man put asunder. So not the Pope, not the bishop, not the prime minister, not the legislature, not the judge, not the justice of the peace. Nobody can put asunder what God has joined together. So our Lord is quite clear on that, and the Church has taught that quite clearly. In fact, the whole Anglican heresy is based on
under Henry VIII
wanting to have an annulment, that the Church said we can't annul this marriage because it's valid. And so St. John Fisher had his head cut off because he said, I've looked at the matter, I've studied it, and this marriage was valid. And we can go into the case of that if you want. But the point was that the king had him executed, and he got the other bishops to apostatize and say, no, we agree it was annullable. And then a year later, after he got, or how many years I've forgotten, then he said, well, I don't want her either. So and he went through 8, but all on the basis that a man in some position of authority can divorce, can break asunder what God has joined together. And whereas to get married, a person marriage is freely entered into by the man and the woman, but they entered into by saying, I, the man, marry this woman. This woman says, I marry, and I do it before the laws of God. And God is saying, okay, this is your choice. I now bless this, and it's insoluble. You can't reverse your deal here. That's what.
And our Lord Himself said that.
Yes. And that's so what they're doing by claiming that they can have a divorce is they're first of all making a sin against the faith by not, even if they're not formally making that, they're acting as if, or they're saying, well, I know I can't break it, but I'm going to break it anyway, but I'm breaking God's law in a serious matter. So they're in a state of mortal sin. So being in a state of mortal sin, they can't go to communion. So, the Pope can't change that. The bishops can't change that. A council of the bishops can't change that.
A synod can't change it.
I don't know. The council of all the bishops of North America, South America, or whatever combination you want, none of them, including the Pope by himself, a solemn decree, can't do it. He doesn't have that authority. It's already defined in the Catholic teaching. The Pope, nobody else has his authority. We're not talking about special Petrine privilege or the Pauline privilege or marriage between unbaptized persons. I'm talking about sacramental marriage, which is consummated. That no one can change. Okay, and no one can, and therefore anyone, even if a pope or a cardinal says, well, we give you, now if the cardinal wants to give them communion, they want to receive it, well, the cardinal commits a mortal sin giving them communion, or a priest. The people, either both of them receiving communion or one of them receiving communion, gives a mortal sin, a sacrilege. And yes, of course, physically they can do it as God doesn't, kill them or whatever He does to stop them or give them some disease, whatever. But they can physically do it, but they cannot do it morally. They cannot do it without sin.
So this is the teaching of the Church. This is not something that man can change.
Yeah.
It comes directly from God. And this business of saying that this is discrimination is actually pointing the finger at our Lord,
Yeah.
and saying that you came up with, your law is not just, and I, Cardinal so-and-so, claim that I know better. And this is one of the terrors of which we live, the diabolical disorientation.
Well, this is what when Cardinal Chappie tells us that in the third secret we're told that the great apostasy in the church begins at the top. Here you have an example of it. You have a cardinal of the Roman Church. I don't know who you're talking about. I certainly know you're well read on these subjects. So you have a cardinal of the Roman Church saying in public.
Well, it's Cardinal Martini. We can say it. He's dead now, but he's on record.
Okay. Well, I mean, you have a cardinal of the Roman Church. He should have been excommunicated for saying such a thing. He first of all should have been defrocked as cardinal. You don't need because he's no longer. If he was ever, worthy of the job, he was no longer worthy of the job once he made such a pronouncement. Now, if he was drunk that day, I'm not saying that cardinals get drunk, but if he was conscious of what he was doing when he said it, I mean, I'm not saying cardinals should get drunk, but if they got drunk and he said something stupid, you can't hold him against as.
This was in an interview that he approved of. So anyway, so we know the teaching. And that we can't get fooled, because this is something that's going on right now in the church, that even the German bishops are saying that we're going to change the law and allow.
But the whole idea of this thing, the law is not something, there's different kinds of law. If we say, for example, that you must drive on the right-hand side of the road because the legislatures of Canada and the United States say so, that's one thing. And there's nothing intrinsically wrong with driving left-hand side of the road as they do in England. It's not unreasonable. It just has to be consistent. It has to be one side or the other. But there's laws that are beyond our control. We don't have the right to say, that God made the institution of marriage between one man and one woman, and this is the way it was from the beginning between Adam and Eve and all their successors. And yes, it's a hard saying for some people, as our Lord Himself said, that the people, because of the hardness of their hearts. But this is the law of God, and God says you can't change it. And I came in person, in the flesh, to tell you that. It's not who are we to say, well, we know better.
So this is a movement that's going on right now. Catholics need to be aware of it. Catholics need to resist it, and also to pray for those who are not in good marriages, that somehow it can be worked out, that they can come back into the grace of God, because many people are in irregular situations, and they need our prayers. That's the short answer. So we'll see you next time on this little bit of an extended version of this program.